Hi everyone, I am Jeffrey Lin, and I'm one of the organizing members of this Columbia Synapse 2026 conference. And now I have the honor to introduce Ray Ciancaglini, one of our first keynote speakers. Note that on our pamphlet that we have Dr. David Brody as our first keynote speaker and Mr. Ray Ciancaglini as our second speaker. That order has switched now, so just take note of that. And Ray is a former professional boxer, award-winning concussion awareness activist, and a native of Geneva, New York. Ray's career as a boxer was much decorated. He was inducted to the Rochester, New York Boxing Hall of Fame and the Geneva, New York Sports Hall of Fame, in addition to receiving the Golden Gloves Heart Award and the Jerry Flynn Courage Award, the Brain Injury Association of New York State Public Policy Award, the Camp Good Days Courage Award, the Rotary Club Paul Harrison Avenues of Service Award, the Catholic Charities Shining Light Award, among numerous others. As a result of numerous untreated concussions sustained during his boxing career, Ciancaglini has been living for years with Parkinson's syndrome and dementia pugilistica, and participates in CTE research studies at Boston University, where he has pledged to donate his own brain for research. Ray saw his injury not as an impediment, but rather as a source of motivation and newfound strength, extending his story beyond the ring and transforming into a lifelong mission to speak to and educate athletes about the impacts and remedies of brain injury, protecting their health and safety. Ray played an instrumental role in the passage of the New York State Concussion Management Awareness Act, for which he received the New York Executive Chamber Award and the Rochester Haycock Hero Award, and the enactment of the Professional Boxing Safety Act. In addition, Ray has founded the Second Impact Concussion Awareness Program, through which he travels across the country, often free of charge, speaking to universities, athletes, and medical professionals about the importance of properly organizing and managing concussions from Portland, Maine, all the way to Portland, Oregon. Ray's personal story has been featured nationally by ABC News and has earned both the New York Associated Press Award and the New York News Publishers Award. Inspired by hearing Ray speak at the New York State Brain Injury Association annual conference in Albany, his friend Andy Siegel authored Second Impact, the Ray Ciancaglini story, which became an Amazon #1 bestseller for several weeks. If you have not taken advantage of the opportunity to get a signed copy from Ray, feel free to do so before leaving the conference today. We hope you can take advantage of this incredible opportunity to take home a signed copy by Ray as a souvenir from our conference today. Now we'll welcome to the stage Ray Ciancaglini.
All I can say is, wow. I've been to many conferences, but this one here has been put together impeccably. And I commend the whole staff and from the other schools. And this is the future. And this makes me so happy because we're going to get on top of a lot of this. And I have to rate Columbia right up there now with me. So thank you. Now I usually go with a script, but today I'm going to wing it a little. My purpose here is to really show you how serious this brain injury is. Can everybody hear me there? Okay. And the reason being, you don't want to take anything too lightly because your patients, especially children, are going to try to hide so they can go on and play a game, or you really have to be stubborn and strict with them, because if you're not, you're going to see what can happen. So I'm here to make sure that you go by that route. Of course, I did thank this group and Andy Siegel. I owe him a lot. I wish he was here today. Everybody should meet this guy. He's a big advocate for brain injury. But again, my objective is anyone that leaves here today will not have a doubt about the serious consequences associated with not reporting promptly and taking care of a concussion. You know, I've never been knocked down in a decade boxing career, but my only regret is that I didn't defeat my toughest opponent, and that opponent was a concussion. Now, concussion, we know, is an invisible injury. There's no crutches, no scars. I've fought this invisible opponent my entire career, not knowing what it was or that I was in jeopardy of developing the long-term complications that I have today. And for many years, I've been battling dementia, pugilistica, and Parkinson's syndrome. And these are a variant of what's called traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE. These progressive disorders are the direct result of not addressing concussions properly during my career. And I take full responsibility, though I don't blame anybody for that but me. But the concussions are a risk for athletes or anybody, any individual, and they're unintentional concussions. They can't be, you can't stop an unintentional concussion. But what you can stop is what's called second impact syndrome. And this is when you have a concussion and you're not properly healed yet, then you receive a second concussion on top of that concussion. The outcome is not good. Usually 50%. It's deadly to 50%, especially young children that the brain's developing. And unfortunately, if you survive it, it's almost 100% that you're going to have some brain damage. I won't go through the most common concussion symptoms. I'm sure we're all aware of those. And, to ensure a safe return to play, of course, you go through your school concussion protocol and doctor's instructions. Now, I started boxing at the young age of 14 when my brain was still in the developmental stage. And children's brains are not fully myelinated, and the nerve cells do not have the insulation that adult brain cells have. It leaves them more vulnerable for a brain injury. And we're into what's called now subconcussive hits. They add up like a cash register. And we used to look for concussion. Yes, we still do. But now they add up. Those hits that aren't exactly a concussion are doing damage, especially with our children where the brain is developing. Well, now at the age of 16, I had everything going for me. I was a high honor student, and they already projected me to be a champion. But I had a bout in Buffalo, and I caught a right hook to the back of my head, and it was the first concussion. I just didn't know what it was. I finished the fight, but I developed a headache and I felt fatigued. But I had another bout coming up in Syracuse. I didn't want to miss that, so I trained right through the fatigue and headache. You know, that was the beginning of all my troubles. That fight in Syracuse, I didn't feel right. I felt lethargic. And sure enough, I got my bell rung for the second time in 1 week. And that started the avalanche. I started missing class. And just everything changed. I failed all my courses. And then I developed, my attitude changed. I developed an attitude toward authority figures. like police, teachers, and I couldn't understand why. I just couldn't figure it out. And my mother, this is her report card, she writes on there, "What is happening to my son's grades?" She couldn't, I had brought her to tears. She couldn't understand what was going on with me. And the headaches continued, and then I started having these mental lapses where I go into a daze. And this was my first auto accident where I hit a tree, demolished the car, and I didn't know what happened. And again, and the behavioral problems. One night I decided I was going to take on a police department. And it didn't turn out too good. But I couldn't understand why I was acting this way. And it was just an outrage. And I wanted to fight him. But it just wasn't the right thing to do. And by the way, I still regret all that today. And I do benefits for every police department. And I try to make it up for being such a jerk. But there's an explanation for it, I guess. And then they suspended my driver's license for numerous tickets. And again, nobody had any idea, the teachers, of what was going on. And I can tell you what it was. It was second impact syndrome. But it wasn't a condition that back then was recognized by medical practice. Nobody knew what that was. But this is how I was fooled into some of these bad decisions. At that time, we didn't have the education we have today. And thank God we do. I look over here and it really makes my heart pump. And we didn't know about reporting these promptly and taking care of it properly. And then we had the false belief that you had to get knocked unconscious to get a concussion. Well, I never been knocked off my feet, let alone knocked out, so where was I going to take a break? And then I received what was called the Golden Glove Heart Award, and that was given to one boxer for the most resiliency and determination. But that award was the worst thing that could happen to me. I thought I was invincible. And then I went to the gym. I said, I got to tell some of the old timers, ask them what to do. And I said, I've been having these headaches and I feel tired. And one of them jumped up and said, listen, you better learn how to deal with these headaches. They're part of the game. You have all the talent there is. Don't waste it. If not, this game's not for you. Well, that fueled it. I was going to put up with the headaches. Now, don't get me wrong, though. They were not intentionally giving me bad advice. They just didn't know any better. But then I started what was called self-remedies. I was going to take care of this thing myself. So for the fatigue, I was taking excessive amounts of vitamin B12 and caffeine tablets for more energy. Then with the headaches, I was taking excessive amounts of aspirin. We didn't have ibuprofen then. Well, especially on fight night, right after the weigh-in and the doctor examining you, I'd be taking down aspirin like there was candy. But those high doses of aspirin now upset my stomach. So I carry a bottle of Pepto-Bismol with me. There we go, making a real tangled web here. And but the real killer was I had a bout in Toronto, and I was winning this fight. It was a big fight. but I got a small cut above my eye. And I had the best cut man in the business working that corner. But all that aspirin that I took, he couldn't stop that from bleeding. And referee stopped the fight in the 5th round. I can honestly say I beat myself that night. And then we go on to my bad behavior again, number 7. My last month of school, I was so disrespectful that they suspended me for the remainder of the year. And they allowed me, if I signed an agreement to behave and not disrupt, and I could take my final exams. But I didn't pass them because I just couldn't concentrate. And I didn't get to walk across the stage with all my fellow students to graduate. But you know what? I didn't deserve it. I didn't deserve to walk across that stage. The red flags were all there, but nobody offered to give me a suggestion or advice. It was like I was all alone. And my relentless determination and desire defied common sense and logic. And the New York State Boxing Commission withheld my license to fight professionally here in New York State because I failed what was called an electroencephalogram brainwave test. And the doctor, Dr. Alexandra Feldman, she reported that she could not find any physical abnormality on the neurological exam. But she was very surprised at the degree of abnormality of the electroencephalogram. Well, this is why they call concussion the invisible injury. I was in tremendous shape for the business I was in. And if you looked at me, the physical, you wouldn't think there was anything wrong. And that's what she was examining. But that electroencephalogram got inside the head. And that's where the damage was hidden. So the reapplication process for a New York State license was you had to get laid off for a year, suspended. You had to come back and retake the electroencephalogram and go before the medical advisory board. And New York State was the toughest state in the country. Now, boxing was not regulated by one commission like the NFL. Each state had their own rules and regulations. Well, after confiding with some of the veterans, they told me, look, go down south. A lot of them don't have a commission there or regulations. Change your name. Earn your money, come back up here. You can retake the test, you'll pass it, and you'll keep sharp, and you're still gonna make some good money. So again, that's what I did, changed my name. And I returned 3 years later, and I repeated the electroencephalogram, and it came back grossly abnormal and consistent with cortical dysfunction and left posterior abnormality, nullifying my reapplication for a New York State boxing license. They banned me. I defiantly circumvented a policy that was put into place to protect me. But I continued to fight in unregulated states. But at that level of competition, the headaches and thigh were wearing me down, both mentally and physically. And the untreated concussions became an invisible obstructor, and it prevented progress and achievement. I finally took a break from boxing and figured the rest would go away, but it didn't go away. I realized I wasn't going to be the middleweight champion now, and I reluctantly hung up the gloves and I threw out every bit of memorabilia. Everything I worked so hard for, I just threw it out. And then from the advice from a physician friend, he said, listen, you're having cognitive issues here. You're in seclusion. You should go get evaluated at this mental health clinic. So I went. I lasted 10 days. And I refused medication, and I refused counseling. And I walked out of there. And I jumped in my car. I headed across country at every national park I could find where I wouldn't see anybody, because animals don't talk back. And after, 3 months or so, I realized that old saying, you can run but you can't hide, became reality. And I came out battling, because that's what I do. And I also realized about attitude. Attitude is the only one thing in our life that we can totally control, no matter what. You have control of that, and I had control of mine. And it was Charles Swindoll said it best. Life is 10% what happens to us, and 90% how we deal with it. Now I was relying on that same attitude to answer the bell for the toughest fight of my life. I enrolled in college. Now I wanted to become a physical education teacher, but I failed my first semester. I couldn't retain what I was they're trying to teach me. And then I had another unexplained car accident. Actually, it was a pickup truck where I broke off 3 guardrails and snapped a telephone pole and rolled over. And they admitted me in the hospital for observation. I don't know what happened. I didn't fall asleep. I had one of those trances. And then I landed a job at Eastman Kodak in Rochester. I was doing okay. But then I started missing parts of my job, and not on purpose. And I developed hand tremors, started dropping chemicals. They sent me to the Rochester, New York, Rochester Strong Memorial. They had a neurologic research center, and they diagnosed me with stage 2 dementia pugilistica and Parkinson's syndrome. And their theory was all from untreated concussions. Well, then I had my third unexplained accident on my way to Kodak. I hit a parked car off of the highway. Demolished that too. They had to extract me from the vehicle. Again, didn't know how or why. Then Kodak said, listen, we got to let you go. We're going to give you a buyout. But my doctors told me, you better retire, because you don't want to hurt anybody else, let alone yourself. That's when I devoted my life to concussion education and research. And that was the same year that Congress was having hearings investigating organized crimes control of professional boxing. And that's when they passed the 1996 Professional Boxing Safety Act. And was part of that. But that was another law that, if it was in place, would have protected me from myself. Then I contacted the NFL and the NCAA, told them that athletes need an education on concussion. They told me, relax, we have it under control. Well, I don't take that. So I developed my own website, and I started speaking across country. And went into a national success. And of the medical institutions, and it was just very heartfelt for me to make sure I could get to these young kids. My input was instrumental, very instrumental in the Concussion Management Awareness Act. And that's for high school students, school students. Every other state used that as a blueprint now. So that now we can get a hold of this. And there's not going back, the thing going back into play before they've been healed. And then we also worked on the return to learn. Getting back to the classroom is more important than the field. Okay? If you can't get back in the classroom, well, what are you doing on an athletic field? So now we have a return to learn for a concussed student that has a gradual return to the classroom so that they don't prolong the recovery and get burned out. We want to make sure they can get right back to where they were. And CTE now has made a lot of strides. And in Boston, I was a big part of the LEGEND study, the SAVE study, and the HOPE study. And I'm still in the HOPE study, but when I leave here, they're going to need a jackhammer, to get in that head. But I donated it to CTE research. Now, I've had over 50 years to ponder what went wrong. And I always come back to the same conclusion. Lack of concussion education and peer pressure led to my demise. Because concussion is an invisible injury, this can cause a concussed student. This can cause a concussed student to be pressured into getting back to play before they're ready. Now, with me, the headaches got so bad with exertion that I had to carry the fight. I'd win, but I wasn't the same anymore. I didn't have that usual aggressiveness that people paid to see. So therefore now, I was being accused of not having the eye of the tiger anymore. And then I was accused of my heart wasn't in the game. This is the same guy that won the Golden Glove Heart Award. Now they're questioning my heart. Peer pressure is, it's a real destroyer. And I challenged the concussion and I got beat. It cost me my quality of life and my future potential. And I rolled the dice where the wager far exceeds the prize. Now, after all of this, anybody that thinks that you want to take this lightly, my life consists of not what I want to do, but when I'm restricted. I've had a headache every day since I was 16. I'm now 75. And I get 3 hours of sleep a night. And my hands used to shake. When I go out in public, I'd sit on them. I don't do that anymore. It is what it is. And good days like today, I can do pretty good. I'm going to rush through here. Okay. My family sacrifices, they suffer too. These are all things that catapult. And I went to see my neurologist, and I told her I'm going to run away. I don't want to burden my family anymore. And she talked me out of it. But I was dead serious. I just didn't want to burden that family anymore. Then I had the fourth unexplained accident, which almost cost me my life. Couldn't figure it out. Helicopter brought me to upstate. And then I walked into a campfire. 3rd-degree burns in my lower body. 3 skin grafts. Then, car accident. I was riding a mower, John Deere, and I pulled in front of a car. I saw him coming. Forgot I was there. Hit me broadside, knocked me up in the air, and luckily I came down and I was okay, but I could have hurt the person in the car. So now we get to the letter that my family received back in 2006, I think. All this to the point, Ray needs 24 hours a day supervision and assistance at home. His syndrome is progressive and will result in further disability and eventually his death. That letter was 21 years ago. So I live by 3 rules that I've stopped dementia almost in its tracks. And the first one is positive attitude and keep your brain active. Live clean, no drugs, alcohol, or tobacco, and follow doctor's instructions and caregiver's instructions. One more page. One of the hardest conditions for me to accept was having my driving revoked, but the killer was not having, I couldn't take my granddaughters for walks unsupervised because of mental lapses. That crushed me. This is the grim reality of more restrictions to come. But with that being said, I've never been knocked down, and I'll darned if I'll let dementia do it. Now, if I had it all to do over again, I would still pursue a boxing career. Absolutely. It's in me. It would still compete with the same tenacity and dedication that it takes to be the champion I never was. And the change I would make is I would get immediate attention for any symptom my body was warning me to address. And the word is out, the help is there. They have to make the smart choice. In closing, in my 75 years, I've overcome so many adversities. My wife insists I have 9 lives. I passed that a long time ago. But I'm still here, I'm still grateful, and I'm still punching. But the one thing for sure, this is for sure, I wouldn't be talking to you here today if I had addressed that first concussion properly. Thank you. Thank you. On time. First time in my life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ray, for your very unique and moving and powerful story and invaluable experiences. We appreciate your candor, advocacy, and unwavering strength in the face of brain injury, making truly your second impact on this society. Keep punching. And at this time, we would like to invite our panelists for the TBI in a clinical setting panel to the stage.